You can give someone all the facts, all the data, all the reasons they should understand and agree with you, but still they are naturally inclined to push back. But when you tell a story, something different happens. You see their shoulders drop. You see they lean in and they're interested. They want to know more. And suddenly your message lands and it resonates. So how do you effectively do that every time? Luckily for you, that's exactly what we're going to talk about in today's episode. Welcome to the Storytelling Lab, where filmmaking, brand, and business all collide. My name is Bennett, a filmmaker and an author, and for over 2 decades, I've studied how stories actually work on the screen, inside organizations, and most importantly, out in the real world. So each episode, I host one of the world's greatest storytellers to help break down the art and science of storytelling as a system, not just a skill. That means how stories create connection, how they move people emotionally, and ultimately, how they drive action. So if you want to learn to tell stories that do more than just sound good, but they actually achieve something, then this, dear storyteller, is the show for you. What's up, storytellers? Welcome back to the Storytelling Lab podcast. Today, my guest is Corey Rosen. Corey is an Emmy-nominated television writer. He's a Moth storytelling champion. He is the founder of the Brand Storytelling Community and Conference, and most recently released the book, A Story for Everything, Mastering Diverse Storytelling in Any Occasion. This episode is such a gem. I love live storytellers that compete and tell stories at the Moth, because they show, don't tell, the classic rule of storytelling. So we start this episode off with an incredible real-life story, literally showing why he is a master at this craft and why he can teach you how to master storytelling in any occasion. Storytelling is storytelling, but when you see someone do it, we're not talking about theory, we're not talking about formulas, we're not talking about, these high-level strategy concepts. We're talking about, no, what are the tactics? What are the tools? What are the devices? What are the elements that I need to use to make a story engaging and interesting and impactful and hopefully motivate and drive action? That's the whole point, right? Now, Corey has an incredible background of storytelling. He used to write for The Tonight Show and David Letterman. And of course, as I mentioned, he's a Moth champion. So he really comes from this world of comedy and entertainment and engagement with his stories. That's what led him to teach brands and businesses how to tell stories, because he understands what moves people emotionally, what gets them excited and engaged and locked into your story. When you're telling a story on stage, buddy, there is no better feedback than looking people in the eyes to see if they are engaged and into your story or not. That is real-time feedback. But here's the thing. Storytelling is storytelling, no matter what the platform, no matter what the format, the medium. And so he takes those lessons that he learned with his comedic chops and writing for television shows and competing on stage, and applies them to other arenas, like your brand storytelling, like if you're having to pitch investors or pitch your book idea or whatever it might be. You still need to grab people emotionally and have them locked in, paying attention and listening to your story. This dude is an absolute master at it, and I don't use that term lightly. We had such a blast. These are my favorite types of guests. He's asking me questions. We're having a real conversation. 2 storytelling nerds that come from 2 somewhat different backgrounds, but kind of similar, and just nerd out about it. And the benefactor of all of it is you. You get to learn just like I learned. I mean, I learned a ton from him. So, incredibly engaging conversation I had, incredibly informative. It will absolutely help you become a better storyteller. So here's my conversation with Corey Rosen, and I hope that you love it. Corey, welcome to the Storytelling Lab.
I am so happy to be here. This is kind of my dream. Just
this is your story. Dream. I was going to tell you.
With story people.
Like, you're so lucky to be here.
I'm so lucky to be. You're so lucky to have me as a guest. We're so lucky.
Now that's true. So just mere seconds ago, we were talking about you're from the Bay Area, but you were in LA yesterday, and you said you were almost killed. Is that the words that you used?
I don't think I said I was almost. It almost killed me.
It almost killed me. Even better. So now I'm curious what the it is, and we decided to save the story for the folks at home. So how did it almost kill you, literally and figuratively, you said?
Sure. I mean, in any conversation about storytelling, I think I would even lead in and open up with, this just happened. This is something that has happened. So what we are having right now is in a sense, a workshopping of how do we take things that have happened in our lives, make stories out of them, right? How do we process things through the lens of story? And so this is something that literally just happened to me yesterday that I'm sort of processing. And part of it is a confession, an embarrassing confession, I would even say. But I've been traveling a lot. I've been doing this just in the last month, I think. Last 5 weeks, I calculated 31 days of travel. I've been on the road, different cities, crisscrossing the country, doing stuff in Michigan and Virginia Beach and New York and Houston and Orlando and LA, San Francisco a couple times. And I realized it occurred to me, I'm super close to gold status on a specific airline. And I'm not one of those like points guys who like counts up and calculates, but it's the end of the year. And I figured if just like one more trip, like all I needed was one more trip to LA or somewhere, you know, I needed the miles and the legs, whatever it is. And so I had it all figured out. And coincidentally, somebody that I'm working with, a client of mine, is in LA, and they invited me to their holiday party tomorrow or last night, right? And I said tomorrow because it was like the day before. They were like, you know, oh, by the way, our holiday party is Thursday night in LA. And I'm like, that's going to be the thing. That's going to be the trip that I take. So I go online, and sure enough, I get a ticket. And because I need the extra leg, and I live in San Francisco, instead of flying direct, I fly through Las Vegas, right? So I go to Las Vegas, and then I go to LA. And the party, though, isn't until 7:30 at night. And I'm on a 7 a.m. flight to Las Vegas. And just, you know, I'm looking at what's the cheapest, easiest way. And so it's like the off-hour flight rather than paying like double the fare. And I have a credit card that got me access to one of the lounges in the airport in LAX. So I'm like, I'm just going to work here. I'm just going to basically spend the day at LAX. Like I could have gone out and done things, but I also had stuff to do. So it's noon. I'm in LAX, you know, in the international airport. And where this lounge is pretty far from where the United Terminal is. I have to walk like 25 minutes. There's a shuttle bus to get across the tarmac. It's this whole adventure just to get there because it's a massive city of an airport. And I finally get there, but I'm set up. I mean, there's free food, there's a bar, there's a little workstation, there's a chill out room where people are just like kind of chilling in the dark. It's like incredible experience. And I'm on Zoom calls and I'm getting proposals written. Like I'm just like having a day, and I haven't even left the airport. And truly, I could have just stayed there, gotten on my next flight, gotten home and accomplished my goal. But I'm like, technically part of the reason I'm here is this party. So I'm going to go to this party. And if you spend any time in LA, you know that also just getting across LA, I mean, 25 minutes to get across LAX is nothing compared to LA traffic. So I look up, you know, how much is an Uber from LAX to West Hollywood, and it's 14 miles away. $100 is how much this Uber is going to cost. I'm like, what the heck? Like, I'm not going to spend, $200 to go to a party. And so I rent a car, right? I'm only there for the day. So it's now like 3 p.m. I'm like, I'll rent a car from Hertz for $30. Then I'll drive my car to the party, go to the party, and come back to make my 10:40 p.m. flight. So everything's working out. I'm being very efficient and economical. And sure enough, you know, time comes. It's about 5 o'clock. Make my way to the shuttle bus. On the shuttle bus, I have this incredible interaction with an Italian family having a huge argument in Italian, right?
Yes.
And the mom is screaming at the dad, and the dad's screaming at the mom, and the two teenage boys are caught in the middle because, you know, they only reserved one hotel room, and there's going to be 5 of them because they're picking their son up in college. And you might wonder, like, how do I know what's going on? I studied Italian in college, and I lived in Florence. So like I basically inserted myself into the conversation where I took a side and I told the wife, I go, io ti credo, you know, I believe you, you know, and like now I'm getting involved in the thing, but they're also laughing because I'm having a whole conversation with this family about their situation. And I think they're a little shocked that like they've had this public conversation in a foreign language, realizing that, oh, somebody was listening to the entire thing. Nevertheless, we get there, I get my car, I drive to West Hollywood. I get to the party. It's a lovely event. There's food and there's smash burgers, and they give me a gift, and it's all great, except I look at my watch. It's like 8:15, 8:30. I'm like, I got to go. And they're like, you're leaving already? I'm like, well, I've got to 10:40 flight, so I got to get out of here. So I, basically spend an hour at this party. I'm driving back across the city, and of course it's LA, so there's traffic. And I finally get to Hertz, and now I have to get the shuttle bus from Hertz half a mile to go to the airport, and it is bumper to bumper traffic. And I'm now looking at my watch. I'm like, I might miss this flight. Like, I was in the airport all day, and I might literally miss this flight. And when I finally get to the airport, we get to like Terminal 1, and United is in Terminal 7. And so I'm now sprinting. Like, I get off the bus 6 terminals early because I figure I'm going to make it before that. Here's where the almost killed me part comes in. I am almost the exact age that my father was when he had his first heart attack.
Oh, buddy.
Now, my father is 85 and has actually yesterday literally had his pacemaker battery replaced, had a surgical procedure. But this is going through my head as I am sprinting across LAX, trying to just get through security, get to the gate that I arrive at as they are like the moment where they are closing the door, but I get in. And I'm sitting in my seat and I'm wondering, like, what if I die right here, this moment? This is the thing that killed me. As they are in the electronic land, triggering gold status. You made it, buddy. You made gold status, and that is the moment I die. But I'm happy to report that's not what happened. But you are now talking to a certified gold status for 2026 member, and it was foolish. It was a foolish thing to have done, but I'm happy to have done it.
Was it worth it?
It was 100% worth it, but
for the
stress is for the story.
This actually, as soon as you started talking, I wanted to interrupt so badly, and for once I didn't.
Okay.
But my first question I was going to ask is like, is there a lesson here about intention with our actions? Because like immediately I was like, the reason you got in this trouble is because you went for the wrong reasons, right? It was a self-serving thing. Yes, the party was there, but it's because you wanted the gold status, right? Otherwise you might have politely RSVP'd no to the party. So it's
I would never have gone to the party.
Right. So it's such a perfect
and I even asked them,
example.
I was like, are you going to pay for me to come to the party? They're like, no, we're not going to pay for you to come to a party.
Like what? Why would we? Oh my goodness.
So vanity and some level of greed, I don't know what you want to call it, but we make decisions in our lives. We value certain things, and sometimes they're for good reasons. And I would call this not one of those reasons. So I've learned valuable things, and I'm happy to have made it home.
However, despite what I just said, it is often only the bold visionaries willing to throw themselves on the line, and along with their pride and ego, that achieve such successes in life. So, there's two sides to that coin, my friend.
That is true. And I would never encourage people to do something just for the story of it. But when you're in the world that you and I are in,
feel like I've done.
There are moments where you're sprinting across LAX, and I've got a bad ankle. I had an ankle surgery years ago, so I'm gonna be in pain. Maybe I'll add that to the story. I don't know that I'm necessarily concocting the story as I'm going, but there are parts of your life that when you start to look at things through the lens of story, you start to have a different kind of appreciation of just, this is happening, and is it good? Is it bad? Might it make a good story? Might I learn something from this? Is, I think, a really healthy way to look at situations.
Yeah, 100%. It changes. This might seem hyperbolic, but it changes your life, or at least it changes your perspective on life.
Yeah.
I find, and this is perfect because the first question that I wanted to ask you is like, because your new book is a story for everything, right? Mm-hmm. And so this short, simple question is like, is there really a story for everything? The real question is, how do you mine for stories or catch stories or keep your eyes open like this? This one kind of fell into your lap, but what you're talking about is the way our minds work when you do this work long enough is you're able to see these opportunities for relatable stories, inspiring stories, et cetera, that happen in your everyday life, right? So is there a process that you have for kind of collecting and catching those stories that happen in everyday life?
There is for me. I'm just as interested in hearing what your process is for doing the same thing. But I'll start and say that I think when you start to look at things as story stuff, things that might make for a good story later, it helps you in the just general appreciation / processing of what's going on. Like you might be in a really interesting or a really good or a really fortuitous or a really disappointing or depressing or unfortunate situation. And if you sort of zoom out just enough to say, where am I in the story? Where am I in this? Like, if this was a story, where is this? Is this the beginning of the story? Is this the all hope is lost moment that things are about to turn around? Is this the peak of the story? Like starting to look at things with a little bit of context is, to me, kind of a gratitude process itself. And to understand that stories are everywhere. They're not just the big things that happen in our lives. They're not just the important, the big relationship, the big breakup, the big accident, the big job that you got or lost. They're the moments that make us human and make us reflect and make us connect. And so stories are everywhere. And when you start to realize that and look around and look for them, then you start to see that there's inspiration truly in every encounter you've had, every job you've had, every relationship you've had, even the smallest ones.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. This act of, zooming out a little bit and objectively looking at yourself as a character in the story is so hard to do. Unless you've built a practice and, it takes reps and time and experience to do that, but it's so helpful. And this, I want everybody to hear this. It is so helpful if you can do that, though it does take a lot of work. It's coincidentally, I gave a speech last week to a group of teachers about being the guide for the hero's journey of their students, right? And I talked about this exact thing of, it's really hard when you're in the story. You're in tunnel vision. You're just responding to the elements that you're dealt one at a time. But they, the guide, the mentor, the teacher, whatever, are able to see it more objectively, like looking from that bird's eye view, and therefore give you a little more guidance. And that's something I've worked with people on in individual coaching. So I love to hear you say that. And the first step is being aware of it, right? And then you can make a practice of it. But it is, I think, inherently challenging to do that because we just get caught up in what's happening right now, and we just are reactive and emotional about what's happening right now. And it's hard to zoom out and be like, oh, yeah, this sucks, but you're in the messy middle, or, the dark forest, and you just got to keep going, and yes, you hit that all hope is lost moment, but that's just before, the darkest before the dawn.
It can also be contextual, though, too. So considering the dark forests that we might be in, looking at where we are and trying to put that into some level of perspective of like, well, what might come next? So that might drive your actions, that might drive your encounters or your conversations. So regarding the concept of a story for everything, thinking about where you might be if you're on a date or you're on a job interview or you're having to give some bad news to some employees or give a performance review or correct some behavior of one of your patients or something where you're thinking like, I could tell them what to do. I could say the thing that I want to say, and you can do that. That's what people do all the time. They communicate information, they say it. And what I guess I've really thought a lot about is, when do those messages stick and when don't they stick? And giving, criticism to someone or correcting someone or telling them something that happened is transactional. It could be conversational. Somebody goes, oh, well, something like that happened to me too. And now you're just trading, which is important. That's a way we connect and communicate and relate. But when you can see it in the story, I use this example. If you're applying for a job and you're having a job interview, you're having a conversation, and they're asking you a question about something that you have done in the past, you can say what you've done in the past. But you can also look at it in terms of like, okay, well, there was a thing that happened in the past, and the resolve of this story might be the job that I'm applying for. That maybe because of this thing that's happened, this thing that I experienced, this thing that I accomplished, that the learning is the thing that I'm going to apply to you and help with this job. So what you're doing is you're taking that situation, but you're also relating it to the now or maybe even the future. So the end of your story is yet to be written.
Absolutely. When you were telling the story about the near-death experience,
that might have been a hyperbolic way of hooking you into that story.
You got to get the tension somehow.
The thing is, though, that's what went through my brain, though. I was like, what if I die? What if this is it? The thing that kills me?
I'm sorry, but that's super relatable. Like, that, no. I mean, that 100% is, especially tying it to your father's story. Like, no. Don't apologize. That's how our minds work.
Yeah.
When you were, I mean, it's obvious, and this is, like, not just to sing your praises for the sake of that, but it's obvious that you're good at what you do when you're telling the story. Like, as soon as you kicked off, I was like, oh, I'm locked in. Wherever we go with this, I'm going, pal. And I noticed, I intentionally tried to tap in as you were telling the story and see what I noticed. Not just be completely immersed into the story, but like I tried to do a little bit of analysis while I was in there. And what I felt, even from the very beginning, is like, we know it neurochemically to be like the dopamine spikes of like unanswered questions, right? Not to nerd out too much about that. But when you started the question, started the journey of the story, I immediately start trying to fill in the gaps of what might have happened.
Yeah. That's important.
And you didn't give it to me, for a while. You laid things out in a manner of like, okay, I'm listening. Where are we going? I'm still with you, and I want to know where we're going. I'm not like, where are we going bored? Mm-hmm. But I'm like, where are we going? It could be this way, this way, this way. How did it almost kill him? Right?
Yeah.
So the question is, now we're going to get into structure a little bit.
Yeah, craft.
And this is a big question. So it might expand into to 2 hours conversation. How do you approach it in a story like that in terms of structure, more specifically in terms of how you lay out the information, how you sequence the information? Are you consciously doing that? Okay, I think you see where I'm going. How do you approach that in terms of laying out that trail of breadcrumbs?
Great question. First of all, I love what you said before about the curiosity gap, the opening up and the understanding that impact that we have between storyteller and story listener, which is that if we don't give you a reason to care or to be curious about something, we're going to lose interest. There's a lot of stories that people tell that aren't stories at all. They're anecdotes or something that happened, and there's no reason to listen, and we don't know, does this have an ending? Is this a thing? Is this a story? Is this a contained experience with a learning or something like that? Or is this a thing that happened and it's going to maybe do one of my least favorite things is then just turn into another story, into another story, into another story.
Oh, God.
The stream of consciousness, which again, this is just how our minds work, how we think. But when we're aware that I'm in the telling of a story, I think maybe at this point it's a little instinctive, but it's also something we can develop, which is to understand that I want to give you some reason to care. And then I want to back off of that so that now I need to build a reason, like an understanding. So I simplify it down to a couple of things structurally and developmentally when I'm telling a story. Maybe I'm doing these instinctively now, but again, I think these are learnable things, is that we need to feed people 3 different categories when we're talking to them. We need to give them what happens, the action of the story. We need to describe it for them in a way that they can, in their own mind's eye, picture it, visualize it, create a movie in their mind of seeing it so that it's not just a thing that happened in an abstract white canvas kind of way, but you're giving them something that they can hook into and see, visualize it, because visual memory is really sticky and really accessible for people to be curious and lean into and notice where are the gaps, where don't I know, what do I want him to fill in, versus, oh, I love that you gave that detail because it helped me to focus my own image of the running across the airport or the gate door about to close or whatever the specific details in the story. It's not just what happened, but creating a mental image that we can relate to and see. And the third one is the inner life, the emotion. What was I feeling? What was I thinking? What was I worried about? What was I hoping? So pairing those 3 components in the ways we tell stories is what's going to ultimately make your story land, is telling us what happened, giving us a visual context, like I call it the color of the story, like filling out the senses of understanding what it looks like, sounds like, smells like, and then the emotion, the inner life of the storyteller, and how we can then relate to the human experience. And I think when we build that, then we have a truly three-dimensional storytelling experience that you can hear and get. Now, was that a perfect story? Absolutely not. Would I continue to refine this if I was going to tell it again? Absolutely. But this is also the nice thing about verbal storytelling to me versus written storytelling. I think we spend so much time when we're writing stories of like pondering over the right words and the crafting of it. And that's a good reason to not start writing at all, because like, I don't know what I'm going to write. It's not good yet. But you find someone like you that I can just trust and tell, it's okay if it's okay. You know, I'll learn through the telling how to make it better next time.
It's okay if it's okay. That's good, man. But it's like a comic, right? Like you test it out, you whittle it down, you know, mold it a little bit, and it gets better and better each time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a great point about written storytelling too, where we absolutely are tasked and challenged with this idea of it being perfect and just, you know, short enough, just hooky and engaging enough, and there's not a lot of room for color. You know, or to digress about the, you know, what you saw in the airport when you were running 25 minutes. They could just, you know, get a little laugh or something like that. You can have a lot more fun.
And
with
even
it.
more, you can see where those spikes are. Like, ooh, this is a place I could slow down and add a bit, add a laugh, add a interaction that I had with the Italians on the bus. Like that has nothing to do with the primary story. That's a little insert.
No, but it's so human. It's so great.
It's human. It's a moment, and it's a joyful thing that happened to me in the midst of it. Might I omit that or extend it or something? Who knows?
Depends.
Yeah,
it totally could depend. And that's good to have those pieces of the story. This is why I talk about all the time. Like you can expand or contract it, right? You have the bullet points or the skeleton or the spine or whatever, but you can add those little details depending on the situation. I told you about this event I did last week for educators. I went over the presentation many times, and on the last go around, I was like, ooh, there's an opportunity for a quick joke here. And I did it in the presentation, landed it, you know, it was great, but it wasn't added into, if I practiced it, let's say 10 times, it was added on the 9th time. You know, and so you do have to look for those opportunities where you can just give a little jolt of something, those spikes, as you said. It's a great word. I have a question that's directly related to this. I had a friend, colleague, contemporary, peer, whatever you want to call them, just this week. There's been a lot of conversation about storytelling recently in the brand storytelling and corporate world. So there's been a lot of dialogue and debate. And I saw someone say something that was along the lines of, I'm paraphrasing, stories meant to entertain versus story tied to or intending to motivate an action are completely different. And I think I disagree with that. Now, I'm not
Tell me why.
Bold to, well, I would argue, and I'm not so bold to think that I'm fully right on that. That's why I say I think I disagree.
I want to hear your thoughts on that.
I like discussing.
It's a great discussion, yeah.
Right. It's a great topic, right, to put out there, and that's what I like to approach things, or the way I like to approach things. Because I would argue that all stories have an action tied to them. Now, I come from the documentary world. That's my career for 20 years, is almost exclusively a nonfiction storytelling. So with almost all of them, there is an actual direct action. I mean, that we see if we're talking about Blackfish or something like that. We're trying to close down SeaWorld and similar, you know, organizations.
Yeah.
You know, the conservation and environmental documentaries are an easy one to use as an example. But most documentaries have at least a perspective or a thought they're trying to convey in hopes of a change, right?
Yep.
But I also would argue that, if you're making a slapstick comedy, I think there's still action that you need, you know, from that. Now, I might be stretching that word because this person was talking about, no, I'm trying to get an investor to say yes to my idea. So there's a direct action. I get what they're saying. Yep. I just don't fully agree that they're completely different. I think all stories are meant to elicit an emotion and potentially motivate an action maybe it's just not as like hard driven as an objective, with a movie or something like that. But I just wanted to bring that topic up because when we look at, you do a lot of competitive story slams and at the Moth, as you just said, verbal storytelling, if we look at that versus a LinkedIn post or a brand story, how much difference is there in your opinion?
The story builds trust. I think that's the first,
love it,
truth that I discover or appreciate about the story and the storytelling. So whether it's to entertain or to influence, by using stories, by telling stories, you're creating a connection and you're creating neural pathways between people, and the neuroscience is there about the ways that our brain waves are in sync when we're listening to and telling stories to and with each other. So if we're coming in to sell someone something or influence someone or change their mind about it, and we just tell them what they should do, they're going to have their own resistance to it, or their own thoughts, or their own their own process of what they think, and lead to discussions, debates, arguments. Stories cut through a lot of that. Stories can use your experience. Stories can show the human side of that. So this concept of whether that's entertainment or education or influence, does there have to be a difference? What we're really just talking about is humans connecting, using stories as ways of illustrating and explaining their experience or their experiences, what they've seen or experienced or heard. And sometimes I like to say that stories are like survival instructions. They're how I got through this thing, how I got through this experience, no matter what it was, whether it was how to navigate, a one-day mileage run in Los Angeles, or how to navigate the difficult passage of a beloved relative going through a long illness, or whether it's I sometimes say how to find parking at the Trader Joe's near. Like they might be important or less important, but in some ways, the way you got through that and the story that you can tell about that teaches us something about you, connects us in ways that we feel opens up this bond. And then if you're like, and by the way, there's this thing that I want to talk to you about, might actually have some more impact and some more ability to influence, to sell, to persuade, to inspire, whatever we're trying to do ultimately. But if you kind of start to look at how might I integrate a story into there? Is there a story that illustrates that in a better way? Or just is there a story that I can create a connection between me and the listener? So that's where I guess I land on it, is that I don't think that there needs to be a difference between, entertainment and persuasion. Not that our objective, like say that you're a courtroom lawyer, arguing a trial, but like there's a lot of stories told in courtrooms, and stories are very impactful for juries and judges.
Absolutely. Let's switch gears a little bit.
Okay.
Let's talk about young Corey.
Okay.
I'm always interested in how, I think I might have said this already, how we all land here in the story sphere, the story universe, whatever we want to call it. And I know you've had some really cool roles that I want to talk about in your journey. But what preceded that? Like, what part of you and who you were as younger Corey led you to, working at Lucasfilm, working at, Jim Henson's studios, and all of these awesome roles that I am very envious of and admire about your line of work. But what do you think?
How'd I get there?
Got you
I got there by working at Burger King. I got there from being fired from the post office. Like I got there through having jobs, that I didn't want, and doing some introspective and saying like, what's a job that I would want? I think that was part of my young pathway, was experiencing the feeling that sometimes you have of like, I'm just going to do what shows up versus I'm going to go after something I want. When I was in college, I remember making a specific, like, it just took me one afternoon, but I made a list of like, what are the companies that I would ever in my life want to work for? What are for me, I like video games and movies and TV shows, but I also liked other things, brands, whatever it was. So I was like, if I had to work for somebody else, who would I want to work for? What would make me feel proud, happy to work for them? Is it a company that with a purpose that you admire, or a politician that you respect, or a show that you watch, whatever that is? And in doing so, that started to make me go from the world of like looking at the job listings of what's available and applying for the job to finding the heat of what I wanted and then applying myself towards that objective. So if anything, I think helped me early in my career, it was frustration. It was realizing that, if I just did the thing that was right in front of me, then that's all that would present itself. That in some ways you have to aspire, you have to go after things, and you have to be okay getting rejected. I think being also, I was an actor as a kid, not like a professional actor or anything. I was like, did a lot of plays and shows and musicals in school and summer camp and stuff. But, acting is a huge exercise in rejection and frustration, but also in repetition and in connection with other people. So, people often think about like that a theater major or a communications major or film study is in some ways, a pathway to one thing, but it's also a pathway to skills that you will use your rest of your life. So I think also a lot of those things have helped me too, in terms of knowing when I could go after something and knowing like, let me just color the experience that I'm having right now and see what can I make of this before it's time to move on.
I think that's pretty emotionally intelligent of you as a college student, I have to say. Like, I don't think I did that work until I was in my 30s. So kudos to you, pal.
Well, it took frustration. It took, I got fired from the post office. It was a summer internship. I was hired to, deliver mail, but I failed the road test. I couldn't drive the car on the wrong side of the road. It's just very difficult and challenging, and they wouldn't let me take it again. There was immediate termination. And not like I hit a mailbox or anything.
No. Who in that, I'm gonna work my way up through your journey.
Yeah.
So this doesn't have to be time stamped, but who are some of the people, or who might be the person that really made a dent in you or your journey, taught you important lessons in the storytelling journey specifically? I mean, this could certainly have been a football coach, but usually, we have those, we talked about the guides and the mentors earlier. We had those handful of people that really helped us transition tough times or kind of take that next step. When you think about that in your journey, which has been storytelling for most of it, who are some of the people that really influenced your path?
That's a great question. Before I talk about the specific people, because there are many that have influenced me or ideas that have inspired me and kind of pushed me forward, something that I think I've seen, at my middle age, that I've seen about both my own life and other people's lives, is it's real hard for wherever you are to predict the future. We can hope for something, we can go after something, but the future is unknown. We don't know where we're going to go. And sometimes you look backwards and the path seems very linear. Like, of course, this is where I am, what I'm doing, based on the things that I have done. They've led to this thing because we are the story of who we are based on what we have done. And I could never have predicted that this is specifically what I'd be doing, but I'm very happy doing what it is right now. Is I'm telling a lot of stories. I'm working with people and helping them tell their stories. I'm writing books about storytelling, just like you. I'm kind of like wearing this kind of general category of like, they're noticing all the stories and collaborating with other storytellers and feeling their presence and their stories. So to get to this, I would kind of credit some of the people that early on helped me to learn about trusting my own stories, my own instincts, my own voices, because we have them. They're talking, they're in our heads, and there's also a voice that's telling us, no, that's a bad idea. Someone else is better at that. Don't do that. And there's a million reasons to not do things and run away from your own voice. So one of the, sort of mentors and experiences that I had was, my high school drama teacher, Michael Hagerman, and my summer camp counselors at French Woods, which is the summer camp that I went to in the in upstate New York, where I'm learning about improvisation, both like on the stage for the theater, but also as a practice, the concept of saying yes and to yourself and making things even if they're okay. And what
it's okay to be okay.
It's okay to be okay. And what, improv, if anything, teaches you from a creative standpoint is that it's not going to all be good. And yet you do it anyway. You get yourself out there and you build something line by line, moment by moment. And there's some metaphor in there, big time, about what we are just doing, of just like, how might this thing, whatever it is, good or bad, be a present, be a gift to me and to this moment. And if I wanted this rejection, if I wanted this, I lost my job by something. What if that's the best thing that could have happened? How might you take something and turn that into something else? Yes, and those moments. And I think that's a thing that I struggle with. I can't always see the good in everything, but starting to look at things that way has been beneficial in the processing of challenges and moving forward through pain or through denial, resistance.
It's really refreshing to me. Like, improv has really infiltrated the corporate space for sure, but like culture, a larger culture in many ways. In recent years, which excites me. I'm hearing more because it used to be, and maybe still is in many ways, it's a very niche subculture, right? This subculture of comedy.
Right.
And I am just loving to, there's a book that Alan Alda wrote, If I Understood You, Would I Have This Look on My Face? You know that book? That's probably my most gifted book. Super easy read, super funny, but like, teaching scientists how to tell story. Like, it's so important. And I'm just, maybe it's one of those things where, frequency bias, where it's like the more you're thinking and looking for something, the more you see it, right? Like if you buy a Toyota, now all of a sudden you see nothing but Toyotas.
Everywhere. They're everywhere,
It might be that in my mind, but I am seeing improv being, more and more in kind of the cultural zeitgeist or whatever. And I don't know. I love to see it because there are so many life lessons and so many metaphors that you can pull from that.
Yeah.
And also, I just want to say +1 and shout out to drama teachers, to high school drama teachers.
Yeah.
And teachers in general. This is a quick related tangent. I'm in Durham, North Carolina, where the Duffer Brothers are from, who created Stranger Things. And in this season, they brought their drama teacher from Jordan High School is the teacher who's like, with the kids. Cool. And so that's super cool because Jordan High School is like, 3 miles from my house.
Yeah. And Tom Hanks did that when he got his Oscar for Philadelphia. I think he thanked his high school teacher.
Oh, so you see that a lot, right? I love those moments. That's so important, because often those educators, again, we're talking about educators, they don't get that shine, and they're there to be the guide and do their work, and they don't, I think, I'm generalizing, but I think that maybe they don't always know the impact that they have, like here and here for people. And I love when they get their flowers publicly, because that can be a very, non-glamorous job. You do it for the love of it, right? You might have wanted to be on Broadway, but you're going to teach 15-year-olds the act of improv or theater, and it is way more impactful than I think people see sometimes.
Can I just build on that? Yes, and that idea, because, and also relating it back to the concept of storytelling, is that these ideas of cultivating, sort of improv is thought of as a creativity exercise, as a creativity experience, but really it's more than that. It's more about uplifting each other, like a sort of giving space to other people and saying, share with me your ideas. So being collaborative, both creatively, but even just, cognitively. And of course, storytelling is a great way to do that, by listening, by practicing our listening and not just saying, this is what I think and this is what I have to say, but slowing down and hearing and then changing. I mean, isn't that what stories are all about? Is
totally
change and evolution. So being changed, learning to evolve and connect are things that improv activities are, because they're really about your mindset more than about being a performer or being on a stage. It's about being a human.
And this was a perfect, yes, and, buddy, we could have a whole conversation about this because the art, I mean, the collaborative aspect of storytelling, in my opinion, is everything. Is everything about it. It is a dance for two, right? I mean, it does not exist without the receiver. Mm-hmm. And I would argue that person or those people are more important, right? Because if I'm a comic telling a joke to an empty audience, it's like, does the tree make a sound in the woods, right? Like, we'll never know.
And you won't know if it's funny until you tell it to someone and
right.
You have
to have that collaborative nature. And this is another book title drop. This is a book that came out in like 2017, way ahead of its time, I think, called Humility is the New Smart. And it was, about, we're already moving at that point, 2017, I believe, to the age of AI. And it's saying that creativity, humility, and therefore the ability to collaborate with other people, not trying to be better, right, than everybody else, because we're going to lose that battle to the robots, right? You can't be more efficient than AI, et cetera, et cetera. The ability for us to be able to collaborate, which is what separated us from the chimpanzees to begin with. I'm, obviously making generalized statements there, but humans' ability to collaborate and cooperate was huge. And I think here it will be again, or at least that's what the book posits. And it was a really cool take on that. And so the companies that I look at that really use storytelling as a strategy, all of their cultures are open, collaborative, and because of that, because of the trust that they have with that culture, they're more innovative, they're more flexible and malleable, and have more longevity because of that. All of these things, all of this is story. All of these are results of story. I just got a little excited. I'm sorry. So what do you do now when you say a story for everything? Are you spending your time working with individuals? Do you work more with brands? How do you take all of this knowledge that you've absorbed over the years with all of your different kinds of work in the storytelling space, and transfer it? Who do you transfer it to? Who do you help most?
Yeah. So right now I have, clients I would say the most interesting clients I've ever had right now, because they are representing very different kinds of experiences. I worked with a woman whose mom died, who in a very short period of time needed to help write a eulogy. And instead of doing and this is a very difficult kind of story to tell, because you're in a place of grief, you're in a place of suffering and struggling. And rather than talking about, how sorry I am for your loss, like, tell me about your mom. Let's tell some stories. Give me some data. Let's figure out who she is, what's going on, and who was she, that kind of thing. And really taking and distilling down events, moments, experiences from that, and filling that out into what ended up being, I'm not exaggerating, so funny that, this is in Los Angeles, she lives in LA, a comedy club booker was like, would you like to come and tell your mom's eulogy at the Comedy Store? Like, she was I'm not kidding, because it was that funny. And what happened is she had really funny stories. And in doing so, it was also, people were crying with tears of like laughter. And she brought her mom into the room. Like, she was there. So like, that was a very unique case study. Dude. I'm also working on a theme park ride, helping.
What?
Yeah. I'm doing some.
Can you tell us much about that, or is that still behind the curtain?
In Dollywood. I can't tell you what the ride is or anything, but it's a it's a new attraction for Dollywood theme park, and it's storytelling on a very different kind of stage. It's like, how do we do very short form and sort of interactive storytelling, where passengers, guests are part of the story. That's what I love about theme park and immersive entertainment, is that we're making the listeners, the guests, not just watchers, passive observers, but part of it. I'm working with AI. I'm working with a company right now that's using AI tools to help rapidly prototype and iterate on ideas. So there's writers, there's innovators, but, AI animation and software, people who have some ethical issues and stuff about, some of the creative, maybe usage of how things are being done, but as a prototyping tool, as a way to rapidly iterate. I mean, I'm a person who spent a lot of my years, 20 years in visual effects, working for big companies like Lucasfilm Animation and Industrial Light and Magic, and we were spending, weeks and weeks trying to create a shot in animation because it took artists that long to do it. And to kind of like look at, say, like, if you could have done that shot in a day instead of in 3 weeks, of course we would. Like if there's a way to do something faster and then you can get to take 2, take 3, and you can finish it, just as well, but with less effort or less, processing power, whatever that is, why not try? So, and then lastly, I'm working with a lot of brands and companies on helping them find their message, like shaping their pitch, shaping their own sense of like, what is our story? What are our stories, and how can we communicate those? So whether that's one-on-one or in sessions or workshops, I'm really enjoying that because, again, to me, sure, I've got a lot of stories. I'm on a lot of stages telling stories, but another example, I was just in Virginia Beach working with a community there last week where there was a snowstorm. Did you guys get any of that weather last week?
I was actually in New York City when that happened, and so yes.
Yeah.
But we in North Carolina got some.
Yeah.
We got some.
It was very funny to me because I'm from New York where we, upstate New York where we got a ton of snow. I mean, our entire mailbox was buried one winter. And there was, I think in the end, about 1 inch that it really like stuck, and they shut the schools down.
Oh yeah,
buddy. They freaked out because there was also one snowplow in all of coastal Virginia or something. I mean, this is not a common weather event.
No.
But regardless, among the communities that I was like teaching and working with there was a group called the Holocaust Commission. These are people that have very challenging, very difficult stories to tell and bring into schools and help educate children. And so talking and working with them about like, how do we make really impactful stories land with the next generation, stories that to these kids, they don't have grandparents that survived this or experienced this. To them, it's the Civil War. It's like something that happened
a world away.
Ago.
Yeah.
And yet it's so important to learn about and discuss and understand what humans are capable of, like the atrocities that we have experienced in our own time. So it's kind of amazing to me, just kind of being in this field now and on this journey, and just all I want is, I don't have to be there, but like I'd love for people to think about stories and understand that stories are everywhere and everything. And when we kind of think through that lens and we look at what's the story, it's going to make us better. It's going to make us more connected. It's going to help us, advance as people, as communities, as humans. That's
what's an aspect of storytelling that you haven't pursued yet that you would love to?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I'm probably not unique in this way, but I've got a lot of unfinished projects. I used to start a lot. I used to start a lot of things, and then that would get half done or just partly done. So some of what I'm looking at now is like, what were those stories that I started that I would like to finish? And then one of the best things about that, I'm trying to put like, we'll gild the rose here, but the idea is that stories change over time. So those things that we started a long time ago might have been young Corey's story. And now I can look at that same thing that was a good idea. Like, wow, what do I have to bring to that now? So there's a kind of fun for me in that, of looking at how might I revisit something that was an older idea, but with the knowledge that I've learned.
That's a great reframe. And I think it's very accurate and true. But it's easy to get, and I've been here and I'm still here, it's easy to get frustrated when you leave something incomplete. Or for me, I've got a film that I've been working on for like 8 years. And a big part of me just wants to get it done and get it out the door. But like if I'd have rushed it out the door in 2020, 2021, whatever, any year before, like it wouldn't be the same story. So there's this element of patience that I think that we also have to have, because sometimes organically it needs to have taken that long. Yeah.
There is also some value in just finishing it. Even if you're like, it could be better, I could add more to it, I don't have enough. Because I think that's what stopped me from finishing a lot of things when I was younger, is this it's almost like a fear of finishing it, because then it's done and then it's bad and people don't like it. It's this your own self-defeating spiral.
There's also a lot of there's a lot of identity wrapped up in that, right? Yeah. Because then it's like, or if you complete it, you're like, well, this was who I was for 3 years, so now who am I?
Yeah,
after this story,
right? So I guess I can call myself an author now. I've written 2 books, and when I wrote my first one and put it out in 2021, it was thrilling for me. So exciting to have finished a thing and to have seen it in print and seeing it out in the world. And then my friends and colleagues and people were posting social media pictures of them, holding the book and reading my book. Whoa, like I loved it. And I was like, this is amazing and so validating and wonderful. And then I got a message from someone saying, I really liked your book. And I'm not kidding. I was like, wait, you read the book? It was a weird thing for me to like come to. I was like, oh shoot, people are going to read the book. Like,
oh no.
In some sense, I was like, well, I wrote the book and people got the book. Like, yeah, you did it. I did it. They got the book. I was like, oh no, what's in the book? And then I read the book. I was like, oh yeah, no, the book's good. You get so close. You get so close to a thing. There was like a part of me that forgot. And I it's weird to also admit this, but I'm doing the audio version of my new book now. So I'm going in the studio and doing a couple hours at a time and just reading it out loud. And I know this is a weird thing to admit, but I'm okay. I'm okay saying it. Like I'll finish a chapter and I'll be like, oh, that was pretty good. Like I'll do like I'm like, oh, I like that. Yeah, that's pretty good.
There's nothing better than that feeling. Especially as an artist, like our creator, right? Because it's rare that you come across that. If all the time you're thinking your stuff is great, I think that's a problem.
Yeah,
but those moments when you're like, whoa, I was dialed in here. I wrote a year or two ago. I want to focus on shifting from nonfiction to fiction, like writing my own these stories that have been in my head for like 10 years. And one of them is a horror story. And there was a scene where it was like, the stuff was about to hit the fan. We were really figuring out what was going on as an audience. And when I was writing it, my my heart rate elevated and I started feeling tense. And I was like, oh, I'm on to something here. Now I can whittle it down and make it better. But like, this is tense and I'm feeling it writing it. And that was one of those moments where you're just like, all right, pal, like you're doing something good. That's something we should appreciate those moments.
We should. And I will, with all humility, I will say, not every chapter in my book do I go like, I'm like, sometimes like, and that one's done. All right, next. Sometimes it's just information.
Some of the chapters are going to be the Italian family on the shuttle bus.
Thank you. They're getting us to the next thing. Yes. They're a pass through. They're a journey. They're an interlude to get to the next thing. And that's partly also, I think, slightly the difference of the new book that I wrote versus the first one. My first book is called Your Story Well Told, which is really kind of like a read-through handbook of what I consider my process. So hosting shows like The Moth, where like you have to get on a stage and tell a story of a certain length and understanding like, what are my stories? How do I construct them? How do I refine them? And how do I tell them? And that's really, I think, an important skill that regardless of who you are and how much you've been doing it, I like to read other people's versions of that. I've read multiple people's versions of my book and I've learned from my teachers and I've kind of assembled, these are the skills that work for me and how I use them. Whereas the new one, I kind of wrote it more like a reference book in some ways of like, this is a specific kind of story that I want to work on. It's a eulogy. It's a wedding toast. It's a bedtime story. It's a, story you might tell with an aging relative. There's one chapter on what I call proud parent stories, like how to and how not to tell those kind of stories, because they can be the most boring, awful things to be subjected to a grandparents or parents. Braggery, there's a whole a thing about that because I'm a parent, I have parents who are still alive and I hear their community telling these stories and the one-upmanship. So sometimes I think about this book is it's really good for that, of like, have the book so that if you're in a situation, you can go to it. But I also think it's a good read through of just different situations. And of course, it's just filled with stories.
And is it out now or is it available?
It's out. It's out in the world. So yeah, it's called A Story for Everything. You can get it online, just search for it and you can find it in bookstores. Or what I'm also encouraging people to do just to support them is ask your local bookstore to order you a copy. You know, like it helps them, it helps
Plus
me,
one
but
to
it also,
that, pal.
more importantly, it helps bookstores. You know, so if you buy books, it's easy to buy things online, but if there's a bookstore in your community, you can just say, hey, can you order this book? They can get it for you. It'll come in a couple of days, and then you're helping everyone.
It's you took the words out of my mouth. It's an extra little step, tiny little step that benefits the whole ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
The author, the bookstore, and yourself. So major plus one to that. Corey, dude, thank you so much for being here. I genuinely feel like we could do this for like 5 hours.
Let's
love
do
your
more.
story.
Yeah.
I would love to connect with you outside of this. There's a lot of similarities, especially in our book journey. My second one is coming out next year.
Oh my gosh.
But I didn't want to steal the spotlight too much from you. But I was making notes because there's definitely some similarities. But I love the way your mind works, my friend, and I'm so glad we got to spend this time together.
Thank you. Thanks for making the time.
My name is Rain Bennett. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed that episode, do us a favor and subscribe to the podcast. If you're already a subscriber and you're enjoying the show, give us a review and let us know the value that you've gotten from it. We love to hear from our listeners and learn about the benefits that they're getting from the show. That's what fuels us, and that's what fuels the show. And if you've already subscribed and you've already reviewed it and you think there's someone else that would benefit from listening to this show, please share it with them. The more we grow, the more we can help you grow, and that's what we're here to do. Join us next time on the Storytelling Lab.